hiring older adults. So what comes next? Well, first of all, we have individual responsibility to remain active, to be engaged in our communities, to work energetically. What our members of the advisory council will do is hold meetings with the potential partners who are listed after each action step, to talk with them about the action steps that we propose, identify any changes that need to be made, identify other partners who are not listed but should be, then begin to set priorities for action, establish ways to know whether we've made progress or not, and then we'll prepare an implementation guide with the advisory council. So I'd like to turn over the microphone now to Deborah Stein from the City of Portland.
Good morning. I'm really pleased to be here with my partners today. This has been a great partnership, and it's one that Bureau of Planning and Sustainability would love to remain very committed to. This action plan, I think, builds beautifully on the assessment work done not only by Portland State and our community partners, but the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. And what is really impressive to me is how congruent this plan is with the healthy,
aging stuff, but
connected
homelessness stuff.
Neighborhood, healthy, connected community concept that we brought forward in the Portland plan and what is now being embodied in the comprehensive plan update. It's really clear to me that what we hear older adults say that they want in an age-friendly city is exactly the same set of ingredients that we hear from community members of all ages of what really would be a healthy, connected city. That's the goal that we're trying to carry forward in the comprehensive plan. So that congruence really tightens that relationship and that partnership and keeps us committed in the work. This is a dynamic plan. It's going to continue to evolve, and I just came back from a national convening of AARP and city planners from across the country to talk about age-friendly cities. So I learned a lot from that gathering that I'd like to bring to this plan. But I also was really proud to share Portland's work to our to other cities in the country who've been working on age-friendly planning. And two of the things that really stood out that I was proud to share, one was the partnership and the amazing partner we have in Portland State University, not just with the Institute on Aging, but also with the urban planning program, because that work, assessment work, and now the next steps of implementation are really strong partners that we have, in addition, of course, to our advocacy and educational organizations throughout Portland. So that was really a standout nationally. And the other is that we do have this amazing point in time, because we're updating our comprehensive plan right now. We have an opportunity to take these concepts and these actions and really embed them in a long-lasting, enduring plan with teeth. We have this great opportunity to look at our built environment and say, what are the ingredients we need to build into that and keep them enduring to make sure that our city is and continues to be age-friendly. So exciting opportunities ahead.
Good morning, Mayor and City Commissioners. My name is Leslie Foran, and I'm the Executive Director of Elders in Action. I also want to thank Commissioner Fish for being our liaison, and to our Public Advocate, George Hawker, for his outstanding leadership and push forward on the action plan. We serve as the federally mandated advisory council to the City of Portland and Multnomah County. Our goal as a partner is to help ensure that city services are age-friendly to our elder population, and that city staff, its bureaus, and partner agencies are prepared to serve this growing aging demographic. We have been honored to work with the Institute on Aging Age-Friendly Cities project since its inception in 2006. We have been encouraged by the City of Portland on its embracing of vision and goals of becoming an age-friendly city. And we have also been proud that the Advisory Council and community members have been incorporated to bring forward the age-friendly equity lens into the Portland plan. I'm pleased to recognize several of Elders in Action volunteers, advocates, board members, and community partners who work diligently to help educate our elected officials, city planners, and the general public on the needs of this growing demographic. If they can please stand now to be recognized.
Yep.
This action plan is intended as an advocacy tool. It pulls together a set of strategies intended to help council, its bureaus, Multnomah County, Metro, local private and nonprofit organizations move our city and region forward to help develop and implement, nurture physical, social, and service environments that are friendly to all people. As an advisory council, we have a great advantage as we have established a strong private and public partnership, which is critical to moving this plan forward. We are poised for success with the outstanding leadership of Dr. Margaret Neal, the Institute on Aging, and the support of City Council. Elders in Action advocates and volunteers and staff are ready. We are here to offer our expertise and knowledge to help ensure the action plan moves forward. We look forward to assisting and advocating to help build robust partnerships between the City of Portland and Multnomah County on funding for services and legislative priorities on issues that affect our population. I thank you again for the opportunity to present this morning. As a member of the Advisory Council and as the Executive Director of Elders in Action, I look forward to our continued partnership with the Mayor and the entire Council to help ensuring we all have an opportunity to age with dignity in the city we call home.
Very much, Mayor. That concludes the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for this great panel?
No questions. So maybe any of you can comment on this, but I sense, we've often talked about having sort of a clearinghouse where older adults can go sort of fishing out with opportunities, whether they're employment or volunteer. Do we have anything like that? Or Deborah, since you just came back from the conference, are there other cities that might be good role models on that?
Absolutely. A portal, it would definitely be Elders in Action, and part of our work is to engage and empower older adults, so if they're looking for employment, we certainly can help route them to our community partners as well as volunteer opportunities. So certainly feel free to direct people. We have a variety of community partners that are providing services, also Multnomah County Aging and Disability Services as their Aging and Disability Resource Center that can certainly help people get to the services they need.
That includes checking the volunteer opportunities?
Absolutely. Yep. Services, employment, volunteer.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much. Other questions, comments? Thank you all. Do we have others that are signed up to testify on this?
Yes, we have 3 people signed up. Please come on up. Mark J. Hoffhines, Peter Graticelli, and Charles
You just hold the
Johnson.
camera? Sure.
This is on the age-friendly cities plan.
Should I begin? I haven't done this before. How
Just
long?
give us your name for the record, and then you have 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you. My name is Peter Graticelli. I'm from Portland. And I'd like to speak in support of this plan. I especially like the way that it's designed to draw from each according to their ability, as well as to give to each according to their needs. It's an empowering thing to draw. The idea is to draw from the ability of the elders, and as we were just speaking of, the volunteer opportunities are an important way to empower them, and they have the Disability Resource Center and that other center, and so I'd like to speak in support of that, and I know it could work elsewhere too. It's a good model, and volunteer opportunities to build one's own shelter, to provide medicine, food. This too, after all, it's been shown to be a good model. For instance, there's a town in southern Spain that I'm not sure if you guys are aware of. It's called Marinaleda, and it's a town in southern Spain which established its own food cooperative on land given to it by the regional government in the 90s. After they occupied that land, like the landless farmers occupied these disused aristocratic estates for a number of years after the end of the dictatorship in the 70s. And the way that town operates now, they've got zero unemployment in a region where, in Andalusia, Spain now, the unemployment's at 37%. And they got zero unemployment in this town because everybody can work for the food cooperative, and it's a town of 3,000 people too. The biggest example of a communal run success that exists, And the way this works is that everybody in the town is allowed to contribute according to their ability to their very survival by working in the food cooperative and the food processing industries that they've developed on that land as well. Over the years as it expanded, it started in the 90s, and today they have food processing as well, and it provides a pretty decent income for everybody there. I think it's about $1,600 a month per person who works in that food cooperative. It's not very much. It's still kind of meager wages. It's, they're barely surviving really, but that's because they're kind of by themselves right now. And a city like Portland was to get on board with something like that with them. You can start it with the elders. Maybe the elders want to do some gardening. You got some vacant city lots that aren't otherwise occupied. Perhaps they would like to garden there, build some shelters. Perhaps the homeless too might like to build some, straw bale alternative structures. They're pretty cheap, just labor intensive. Perhaps they would like to garden there too. We'll speak more of this anyway. I like the plan. Way to go.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Hey.
Morning, Mark.
Hey, morning. Mark J. Hopkins Jr., founder of UCARE. I love this picture that they got on here. It says, talk to old people, they know cool stuff. I agree, most definitely. But also the only thing I think is really missing from this plan is a homeless clause. We've been dealing with homelessness for how long, years, okay? But, it's a great plan. It's a beautiful thing that they're actually doing this, and I support you guys greatly. What I think we need to start implementing more often is when we do these types of plans and implementations of these things, we need to think also of the homeless that are in the same age groups. Because, they're actually going to be involved in this, because with the jobs things, great, that's cool. If they offer the jobs things for the older people, but also giving them the opportunity to get in there as well. If we added a homeless clause and kind of incorporated them more into it, we would actually make a precedent as a city to actually show that we are actually working as a whole instead of against one another. And I think that would be a good thing to start keeping in mind as we do these plans as well. And again, thank you guys for making that beautiful presentation.
Thanks very much. Morning, Charles.
Good morning, thank you, Mayor. Charles Johnson. We generally have very good citizen and professional panels, so I know sometimes we get a nice glossy presentation, even though there's actually been in-depth work in the facts. But I think that we should have more honesty in our presentations. And the minute somebody gets up to talk about the elderly, or even the citizens of any age in the city, we want to maybe consider whether we want to hear some PR firm expressions, or when we talk about the elderly, do we want to hear some specific phrases like less suicide, less loneliness, less isolation, better medical care. Those particular phrases were not part of the presentation, and I think that that's your job as city councilors to actually help some of the meat get out there, even though we know that these are hardworking people who have done good, hard work. We need to look at the specifics. My personal feeling on this is a little bit influenced by the number of hours I've recently spent on the 8th floor of Providence Hospital and at Portland Rehabilitation at 12441 with somebody who was born in 1937. So I commend everybody, especially the elderly people, who stepped forward as part of this program. Elders in Action is great, but we always want to make sure that we're being constructively critical more than we're patting each other on the back. And I do want to echo Mr. Hoffman's comment about the elderly homeless, and in particular situations where they are victimized. We didn't hear anything about reducing elder victimization. And one place we might find that is in some of the SROs and places like the Westwind hotels, where people, sometimes 80, 90% of their income goes to provide them with bed bugs and communal showers, and they need to be moved into better situations, or that whole operation needs to be reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Tom, who signed up?
One comment before we go to vote. The principal commitment that we're asking the council today, in addition to supporting the resolution and adopting the plan, is that each of us as leaders, that is the mayor and each of the commissioners, and through our bureaus, agree to engage this plan and its sponsors to explore ways that each of us can make progress towards an friendly city. And what we have learned in this exercise is that every one of us, in our individual leadership capacity and through our bureaus, can contribute something. And they're asking for a commitment that we will continue those discussions and begin to look to opportunities that we can jointly work on. And that's a very important part of this resolution.
Thank you. Other comments before we vote? Okay, we'll call on the resolution.
Novik?
Well, I'd like to say that I appreciate the fact that the plan calls out the importance of good transportation infrastructure, in particular active transportation and access to transit, which means better network of sidewalks, signals, crosswalks, etc., which are critical to everybody, young and old. But I think that it's especially important that we consider the impact of having or not having those amenities for the senior population. And also, tomorrow is the Great Oregon Shakeout, and we want to remind seniors and people who are neighbors and relatives of seniors to make sure that seniors, along with everybody else, has a plan for when disaster comes. So thank you very much for your work, and I'm proud to vote aye.
Fritz?
Thank you to the leaders of this project, Florence Fade and Elders in Action, community members who have stepped up. There's a lot of partners beyond those who are presenting today. I appreciate that. When I was given the huge honor of being put in charge of the Office of Neighborhood Involvement in 2009, I looked at the assignment, then I noticed that Commissioner Fish was assigned to be the liaison to Elders in Action. I questioned that because it's actually funded through the Office of Neighborhood Involvement, and Commissioner Fish made it quite clear he was going to continue to be the liaison to Elders in Action. Even at that tender stage of beginning politician, I realized that two votes towards anything to support Elders in Action is definitely a good step in the right direction. So I commend you, Commissioner Fish, for your leadership on this over many years. It was my honor to adopt the Age-Friendly Cities Resolution in 2010. I might lend it to you occasionally. I commit to my office having a delegate to your ongoing work, and also Parks in particular will be a very strong partner in this work. I'm going to put a marker down right now, and I'm going to be asking the council in the 2014-15 budget to be adding general fund resources to return the senior recreation programs to ongoing funding in the parks budget. We're able to save it with one-time money this year, and it's clearly something that needs to happen. It needs to be a partnership between Multnomah County and various other community partners, and that would be an early ask in my long list of requests, because as we start to climb out of the recession, we need to prioritize the things that we realize we just can't do without. And this services for seniors is one of them. We sometimes think that elders need help, but elders also give help. Commissioner Fish and I were honored to be at the Hollywood Senior Center 40-year anniversary a couple of days ago. And as I was leaving, a couple of folks came running after me, as people often do when we're at community events. And one of them was talking about the trails in Forest Park and how seniors are concerned about being run over by cyclists, and so that was interesting. The other simply wanted to say that to express his support for people experiencing homelessness, and that sometimes people need a hand up. And it was very gracious to hear that from the seniors who have weathered a lot in our community over the course of the last decades. So thank you so much for all of this work, and we will look forward to continuing to work with you. Bye.
Fish?
I want to begin by again thanking Margaret, Leslie, and Deborah for their great work. This is a superb action plan, and because of it, we have an opportunity here in Portland and Multnomah County to become a leader not just locally, but a national and global leader in planning and developing a city that is accessible for people of all ages and abilities. And here's the key, when we do that, we all benefit. That's the beauty of this action plan. You've given us the first concrete steps to take going forward. And I think it's only appropriate at a time like this to acknowledge all the people who've worked so tirelessly to bring this forward. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to just read the names of all the members of the Advisory Council because they have all made a contribution. Scott Robinson, Jay Bloom, George Hocker from my office, Amy Daly, Doug Adams, Deborah Stein, Vandana Shrestha, Margaret Neal, Pamela Huff, Leslie Foran, Alan Del Torre, Loretta Slaughter, David Hansen, John Mullen, Julie Wilkie, and Mary Hanlon. We could not be more grateful for all the time that they have spent on this enterprise. You know, I had a slightly different experience at the 40th anniversary of the Hollywood Senior Center. That's because I followed Amanda. She somehow got earlier on the calendar, on the schedule. I was like speaker number 50. When I was finished, someone did approach us, except this person blasted me for a couple of my votes. And I was reminded, as this person was unloading on me for a couple of things I've done, that this goes under the headline of communication that you've talked about. This person may not have access to the internet. The gentleman who was talking to us was experiencing poverty. So how wonderful it was that we were actually physically present so that he could take an elected official to task for something that he disagreed with. And in the course of the conversation, we actually found some things that we agreed on. And so I think we left with the hope that we could build on that relationship. But it was very important for him to have access to us, to those of us in leadership. You know, one of the proudest things I think this council has done in the last few years is invest in a playground in North Portland called Harper's Playground. And it was presented to us as an opportunity to work with a family that wanted a playground that didn't have any barriers for one of their children. If you go to Harper's Playground on the weekend, what you'll see is children of all abilities and adults playing together. So while the vision was to help Harper, who was otherwise prevented from accessing public spaces, the reality and the promise is that we as a community use that playground, old and young, intergenerational, children of all abilities. And that's our greatest strength, when there are no barriers and we can all work together and experience the greatness of the city together. So I could not be prouder of your work. I also make a commitment through my bureaus to continue to make progress, and I've heard from many of your supporters that it is vitally important that we continue to provide those discount programs for low-income seniors who otherwise would not be able to afford their water and sewer bills, and we make sure we communicate clearly to them about what those opportunities are. Thanks to everyone for a really splendid job. Aye.
Saltzman?
Well, I want to thank the Age-Friendly Portland Advisory Council and Commissioner Fish for all your good work here. This is really a great plan, a great action plan. I really appreciate how well laid out it is and how thoughtful it is. I think that, and I will commit to reviewing my bureau's websites and brochures and other ways to make sure that we are following the path of the Water Bureau's efforts to make sure we're larger fonts, less phone numbers, things like that. But I do want to say that, you know, I think a lot about being an age-friendly city is all about trying to combat isolation. I think that's a natural tendency that occurs as we all age. You know, I see it in my own self too. And I think there's a natural tendency to become more isolated, but also because society, I think, as Margaret said, you know, tends to try to push you out the door at 65. And that's why I hope, you know, that Elders in Action can really help connect people that really do want to get involved, because it's not easy. I think that to the extent we can make it easier for people, whether they need employment or volunteer activities, we're all going to be better off, and we're going to end what I think is something that's so important to end, and that is the feelings of isolation that go with aging. So, great report. Please to support it. Aye.
Ailes?
I like the substance of this report very much, but I also like the way it was put together, that we have this combination of academia and advocacy and the city staff working together. this, you look at the collection of organizations, the three here represented, but also others, and that's really a great partnership. And I like that very much. And I think all of us are, as we listen to you and thinking about this point that Commissioner Fish made about how does each of our bureaus implement, work with you to make this plan into specific actions. I think each of us has got a list in our head now of, okay, we can do this, we can do that. And that's, of course, exactly what you're trying to provoke. And I appreciate that worked. They ruminated about one of those, and in fact, it's so great that Deb was involved. How we build the city is not a one-year decision. It lasts for a very long time. And when you think about the planning issues, which you do all the time, Deborah, about how do we make this a city where it's possible to age in your neighborhood, we have a lot of work to do. My parents were living independently until my mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and then they needed to move into a continuing care community. Their choices at that time, this was 20 years ago, were mostly suburban. The standard continuing care community was a suburban, low-rise model. And there are a few urban models now, a few here in Portland and elsewhere. But if you look at the size of the aging population, the number of people who would like to remain in a city neighborhood and age there in their own network rather than have to uproot, as my parents did, and move to a completely different place, which was also occupied solely by old people. So that, to me, when you think about the planning agenda, just one piece of this work. What a huge challenge we have, but also an opportunity for Portland to be a model of how to meet this challenge and help improve a whole lot of people's lives in ways that will last a long time. So very important work. Thank you, and look forward to the next chapter. Hi.